Hey everyone, it's Danny here from Sadie Hawkins Pod, and got a little top of the show announcement. Jess won't be joining us. Unfortunately, Marilyn Manson ate her. Apparently, she now believes in sin. So,
Danny.
Oh,
I'm right here.
Oh, hey, I thought you were eaten by.
No, we're not even doing that song this week.
Oh.
We're doing a song off air for free.
Oh. Oops.
Let your kingdom come. I believe in God. I believe in God. Oh, and I believe that I believe in none. So help me, God.
So, Jess, Marilyn Manson ate my... Oh, wait, no.
No.
This week, we're doing God off of Air for Free. I picked this song this week because, not counting this week the trend, which was last week, the 2 weeks before that, we did Softer to Me and What Have You Been Doing Lately? And in both those cases, especially with What Have You Been Doing Lately, we really came down hard on what we felt were the sort of not that, problematic Christian ideas that we did not agree with. That maybe we understood, and I sort of at the time, but now looking back, they were like a little iffy. So I was like, we really need to do like one of their positive Christian songs.
Yeah. This is my favorite praise and worship song of the last 20 years.
There you go.
This song sounds very Tegan and Sarah to me. Not the lyrics, but like the melody, particularly the beginning, and then it sort of fades into like a contemporary Christian feel.
There's a particular Tegan and Sarah song, it sounds like.
Yeah, I can't think of which one it is right now. It's off of Heartthrob.
Right. Well, I don't remember what that song's called either. I only listened to one song on that album constantly. I mean, we listened to that album a lot when it first came out, Heartthrob. Mm-hmm. But what's that one song that's like do 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 do. Except I'm tone deaf, so I can't really. You know what I'm singing? You know what I'm singing, right? Do 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 do. I'm making it sound like
That's not.
I'm making it sound like a Kraftwerk song. No, I'm saying the song that I like.
A little closer. That one. Yeah, Closer. That's what you're thinking
That's
of.
the song that like Spotify, if it puts together one of those lists of like, here's a song you've listened to 25 million times. It's like that, and it's
That's funny.
I don't know if I want to mention all the songs that I listened to 25 million times, like the most.
Yeah, I like Closer a lot. There's a really cool like EDM mix of that song that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. It's funny that you picked God because I really wanted to cover Prodigal.
Right.
Because I have so much more to say.
So we have a whiteboard in our kitchen, which is also where we record. I'm looking over at her right now. And she wrote, songs Jess wants to cover. Should I let them know what all of these are?
I mean, I honestly, they were just quick off the top of my head.
Prodigal's the first one you wrote down on our kitchen whiteboard.
Yeah. I think it sparks a lot of really interesting conversation. I really love that song.
Right. But you also wrote, I guess we'll spoil these. It's not that we're going to do these sooner. Like, we might push these back a little bit because we want to do what we think will be our really good episodes, like, as we get better at podcasting. Like, we've got Runnin', you got Falling Out, and you got In Love with the 80s.
Yeah. Danny keeps pushing In Love with the 80s, and I'm like, I want to do In Love with the 80s.
We'll do In Love with the 80s soon. We'll do In Love with the 80s very soon.
We got to do some hits,
We'll do it before the new year.
Okay.
We've done a couple of hits. Well, we did the first episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what this is? God, turns out, is not a hit because I'm spoiling the thing here, but there were no covers of this song. Like, when I did this research and I couldn't find a single one, and I was really surprised because I thought someone would do like a simple piano cover, or like some worship band would play it live and then put it on their social media, but I didn't find any.
This is totally a song that you could sing in church.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because they do like, they convert like Ren Collective songs and stuff like that to do in churches now. So like, why not do this one?
But also they do like Beatles songs.
Yeah, exactly.
And stuff. Sometimes they change a word or two, a reference to, a specific God it might be about, to be about the Christian God. But yeah, like there's a lot of worship groups will do pop worship. I mean, the best way to describe it is pop worship, popular worship, as opposed to, actually, like a lot of the worship that you and me are probably used to, like the songs that are on Scallelujah 1.
Yes.
Those songs actually, and those songs are not that old. Like those songs came about in our generation. Like I grew up, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, but the church I originally grew up in, we sang actual hymns. And in later churches that you'd go to, like, they'd be playing the song and they'd put the words up on the light up. What do you call that? The projection screen.
Projection screen, yeah.
Right? But then some of the churches, they still had the hymnals in the pew just in case.
Yep.
It's almost like you need a backup battery.
I think that
for some things, like they had the backup hymns just in case we need to go back.
The churches I went to were like 8 a.m. service was the traditional service where they did hymns and stuff, and then the 11 o'clock service was the contemporary stuff.
Okay. Oh, who's waking up that early to go to the traditional service?
I did sometimes because I worked in the church nursery when I was in middle school and high school, so sometimes I would be on for the earlier service.
Okay. Well, before we get too much into the song, did we have any top of the show business? We were thinking about doing a segment called What Have You Been Doing Lately? And it would have this theme song.
What have you been doing lately?
And which is a song we've already covered. And now, so Jess, what have you been doing lately?
Oh, I feel very put on the spot. He's motioning at something. I don't know what's happening.
You wanted to tell the story of what happened with the refrigerator 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, so I apologize if you're wearing headphones and you can tell, and you're probably like, we hear your refrigerator running in other episodes, but tonight the refrigerator is probably going to run the entire night.
You better catch it.
Yeah. Because one of our shelves just fell out of the refrigerator when I went to open the door a few minutes ago.
Yeah, one of the shelves in the door.
Yeah.
I was in another room and I hear a crashing sound and Jessica's like, "Oh my gosh!" and I'm like, "What?" and I come running out and like there's bottles all over the ground. I was afraid people were gonna be wounded, like the wall had crashed in or something. I didn't know what happened. But yeah, we have a rule around here that you can't open the fridge an hour before the podcast.
Yeah. You got to get all your water ahead of time and just let it get warm.
And I also wanted to let everyone know that something else that's been doing lately is that Andrew, who from Magnified Pod, that we've been talking about for the last several weeks.
Did we get it? Did we get the cover?
We got the cover. He did last week. He had promised us a parody version of This Week the Trend. He didn't get it in on time last week, so we do have it, and we'll close the show with it. Because this is something you don't just hand out at the top of the show. We want people to stick around to the end. This is the gold right here. He sent me a GIF. He's like, "Hey, did you get the email I sent?" And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't look yet." And he said, and so he sent me a GIF that was like, now that's what I call yikes. It was like
it's the Jim from The Office saying yikes, I think, right?
No. It's the cover of No, That's What I Call Music.
Oh.
But it says No, That's What I Call Yikes.
That's amazing. I didn't see that one.
It's Now That's What I Call effing yikes. I think it's really bad. And then I told him, like, no, we're eating dinner right now, and then we're going to record in a few minutes. Like, he caught us right before we recorded. And I said, I won't listen yet. We need to digest so we can keep our dinner down. But I also was mentioning that this week there were no cover. I'm purposely going to get ahead of here a little bit. This week there were no covers of the song we're doing that I could find anywhere on YouTube, SoundCloud, or Bandcamp, which are typically where I look. So I put it out there on our social media, and I gave everyone about 2 weeks notice because we already knew we were doing this song when we recorded This Week the Trend. I said, if anyone out there wants to record covers of God by Relient K, send them our way. Either like post if you have a public link, or if you want to send the attachment to our email. And that's what we got. We got 2 covers. We were actually supposed to get, we were supposed to get 2. We got one by one person, and we were supposed to get 2 versions by someone else, but one of them wouldn't play, like the file was corrupted, so I replied, and unfortunately they didn't get back in time, so maybe we'll play it again next week if it's that much different. But yeah, we'll talk about those and who recorded them once we get to covers. So what do you think of this song, Jess? Did you have any thoughts specifically about this song?
This is another Relient K song that alludes to the narrator being stuck in life and needing to come back around again.
Yep. I thought one thing I really like about this song, and part of the reason why I picked it as like, here's a positive religious Christian song that Relient K has done, so we're not going to have any problems with any of the lyrical content in this song, right? Because it's just about someone who has sort of drifted from something that made them happy, right? Now, I don't want to downplay Matt Thiessen's faith, because that is what this song is about. And I've had this thing, I've listening back to past episodes and trying to like become better at doing this podcast. I noticed that like sometimes when a song had a clearly religious Christian theme, even if it was only a fraction of the song, I've had a tendency to downplay that in some of the other songs. Like we've had songs we've talked about that clearly people online were like trying to force a religious theme into, where we thought that was inappropriate and was actually counterintuitive to Christian ideals, because if you put that theme on those songs, it's like actually the opposite. But there were other songs where clearly, even last week, this week, The Trend, where I sort of downplayed the idea that this song's about God. I just kind of have this tendency, if a song is clearly a Christian or religious song, I'm like, oh, clearly that's what this is about. But I've always had a tendency with like all art, where if something is left kind of vague, I like to leave it open to interpretation and almost to the moment. Like if I'm listening to it now, okay, obviously it's about God. If I'm listening to it later, oh, it might be about, other things.
Right.
So I've had a tendency to downplay that. And sometimes I feel bad because I'm like, that's probably not Matt Thiessen or the whole band's intention for the song necessarily. Like maybe they do want you to get what you get out of it at the time. Maybe they do want to give you these ideas about Christ, and maybe they want to kind of make them a little slyer because they don't want to scare some people off. Like a lot of bands do that. That's like sort of the thing about crossover hits when it comes to Christian and music and stuff like that.
Well, you don't have to worry about that this week, because this song is clearly not at all religious.
What? Wait, no. That's what I say every week. No, that's why I picked this song. And then I kind of realized that I'll still kind of do this as we talk about the song, because as I really listened to this song, what I found interesting was that unlike a lot of the particularly songs on the first two albums, and then some songs on middle Relient K history albums, eras, is that this song, while clearly about Matt Thiessen's faith, and we know what religion Matt Thiessen is, you could, except for the phrase let his kingdom come, you could make this, you could pivot this song, like other people could interpret this song to be about any other god, any other religion. You could. I mean, the tone of it, the music, the style is very modern Christian, right? So I don't know what other religions would want to take this type of clearly like inspired by modern worship music and make it, but I'm just saying, like, if you have lots of different kinds of faith and lots of different ways in which you believe in God, which is something I think we might talk about in a minute, because I have certain thoughts about God and stuff. He doesn't really directly mention Jesus, right? Like there are songs where they flat out mention Christ and Jesus and stuff, and there are other songs where they just allude to him. This one is just about him believing in God. Yeah. Which I think is...
The lyrics are literally, I believe in God.
Which, if this song is about, when we get to prodigal, like the idea of being the prodigal son and returning to something that you lost, that's the whole point. I think that's like essentially this is the same thing.
There's so much I want to dive into in Prodigal, because I think that song is so brilliant.
If you are someone who has maybe turned away from Christian faith, right? And you're like, you want to return to that, or you're like, I've drifted too far from it, or maybe you don't feel like you turned away from it, but maybe you just kind of became lazy. You needed a wake-up call, right? Yeah. We've had so many wake-up call songs recently. This week, The Trend was a wake-up call song. Saying that you believe in God is like the basis. It's like the start, right? So we're in our 30s, and we were raised in Christian churches. Very different kind of churches. I actually went to a number of different sort of denominations, and I'd like to share a little bit about this, right? So you and I, having been raised in a Christian background, and having had friends that come from that, and we have friends that aren't that, like you and me were never in the sort of Christian society that separates themselves from the world. We were never part of communities like that.
No.
So we always had friends. We never really thought of, here's your Christian friends and here's your non-Christian friends.
Right.
Although there were periods in my life where maybe I did think that. We've seen friends of ours who are Christian who have gone in all kinds of different directions. When you're in your 30s in this decade, right? People grow up and they just flat out become atheist, or they just sort of move away from the whole idea of religion. They just become like uninterested in it, or they lean totally into it and also sell into the whole political conservative aspect of it. And we've seen people who have like totally gone on the side of politics stuff that we really hate that's going on in the world, and the idea of like disagreeing with the idea that human rights should be a thing, like that becomes a Christian thing. Like we've seen every aspect of it in our friends and our family.
I feel like we're just going to offend people in this episode.
No, well, we have to. We have to. It's our story. It's we're going to talk about what we think through this song. So it's like,
Danny came from a little bit of a stricter Christian background.
No, not really.
Oh, not really?
No.
That was, I think, when you got a little bit older.
My thing was that when my parents became born again 1 year after I was born. I was 1 year old and they became born again Christians. They were both raised Catholic, right? So they became born again. I was baptized in the Catholic Church, I believe. I really think so. And my sister was not, because my parents were already born again for years by the time my sister was born.
Well, Danny, we need to rectify that, because otherwise you're going to go to Catholic heaven and not Protestant heaven.
You're right. Oh, man. I'm glad we brought this song up so we can get on this right away. So my parents, like, I don't know. When I look back on it, and I don't know if my parents felt this way, but for me growing up, we had like a proletariat like lifestyle with Christianity, where it was like we go to church every Sunday and we, volunteer and do stuff with the church, but it wasn't our be all end all. Like we didn't talk about Christianity with everyone outside. We didn't only go to Christian businesses. We didn't even listen to, we watched TV, we watched movies. Like the only thing my parents really did when it came to worldliness in our home was they blocked MTV. But you can absolutely not be of any religion and block MTV because you think it's inappropriate for your children.
Yeah, my parents did the same thing, but it was just because I think there was a lot going on in the news and stuff in the 90s with like MTV's bad and your children shouldn't watch it. Like,
yeah. We recently found one of those VHS tapes from a church that's like don't let your kids watch MTV, and I really wanted to watch it because it was in my era of where I finally did get MTV back in our home in like 1995. So I'm like, I want to watch this just for the clips of MTV. I remember this specific generation of MTV.
I think that it was like when we moved a couple of times that finally my parents stopped blocking it. But I think it was because they realized that I just had no interest.
Right. I had an interest because the way it was blocked, the cliche of scrambled porn? Mm-hmm. Like you have the Spice Channel and the Playboy Channel, but they can't be blocked from old analog cable. They could only be blurred out and you could still hear the audio. Yeah. That's the way MTV was blocked. So I could put it on MTV and I could hear the songs, but I didn't want to just do that because it was no fun to only hear the songs. So I really didn't keep an interest in hazy blocked out MTV.
Yeah, it was the same in our household because I remember having friends over in middle school for like a sleepover or whatever, and they're like, let's put on MTV, and I was like, I don't think that we get that channel. And then I was like, I'd never even tried to go to it because I knew that like my parents I think at one point had told me this is blocked, no MTV, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like I loved TV Land and stuff. I wasn't trying to watch MTV or anything like that. So my friends tried to go to it, and it was like the like scrambled stuff, and they were like, ooh, we're being so naughty, and I'm just like, whatever.
So my parents. And this word carries a certain narrative in a lot of people's heads when I say it, but it's not the same narrative. My parents used to take us to a Baptist church, but we grew up in Boston. So what I now understand as a Baptist church was absolutely in no way whatsoever like what I understand a Baptist church to be like. Like, basically, by the time I was on the internet and having conversations with people about all sorts of things, when I would be like, oh yeah, I went to a Baptist church, they'd be like, oh, so you weren't allowed to do anything. I'm like, no, there was absolutely no restriction. I mean, sure, the pastor might talk about like, oh, that billboard outside by the mall is a little too sexy or whatever, but they wouldn't be like, don't see this movie and don't see that movie. They wouldn't do that in the church I originally grew up in, so that wasn't in our lives.
Yeah, that's why I think that I tend to think of your upbringing as being more strict, and also where your parents are at now.
Because so what happens eventually is through a thing that I can't, that's a whole nother story, I end up not being able to go to my public school anymore. I might tell that story on failure to excommunicate. But basically, I need to like find another school. I can't be going to my local school anymore. So my parents started looking at all kinds of private schools, and obviously not just religious ones and not just Christian ones, but other ones as well. And eventually, we settle on what they called themselves non-denominational, but they were a church that danced in the aisles, put their hands up, worship, what's basically like ubiquitous Christian culture nowadays, right? But for me, it was like the first time I'd ever seen any of this, and I'm at that point like 12 or something, and my parents are like, oh, whatever, I guess it's Christian. Like we go to this, but that's not the kind of Christian environment I was raised in for over a decade at that point. And it was actually going to that church that like I learned about like there's Christian punk and there's Christian ska. There's also like Christian pop and Christian CCM music that I'm not interested in, because I'm not interested in regular pop anyway. Why would I be interested in the Christian version? But hey, there's MXPX and there's Supertones and Fiber and Frenzy. I'm cool with it. That's where I learned about that stuff. So that's where things start to get a little bit more strict, but actually it was slightly imposed by me, right? So as I'm going to those churches and I'm going to those schools, and those schools didn't have, like my cousin went to a school where they weren't allowed to like own CDs.
Oh my gosh.
Right? But like own CDs.
Whoa.
They weren't allowed to have them at home. You know what I mean? Much less like, it's not like you don't bring them to school or don't bring your secular music here. It's like they're not supposed to own secular music at home.
Man, the only thing we had banned were Pokemon cards and Tech Deck minis.
But lots of schools ban that kind of stuff. Schools nowadays ban fidget spinners and hoverboards and stuff. But by going to...
Danny, none of those things are cool anymore.
Yeah. By going to what I guess were evangelical schools with churches associated, and I go to those youth groups and sometimes go to those Sunday services at those churches and starting to get interested in like Christian festivals and Christian music and stuff. In addition to what I was already interested in was Green Day and grunge music and like other pop punk and stuff. That's where I started to be like basically the pastors and the teachers there slowly kind of indoctrinated me to like, you shouldn't like secular music and you shouldn't. So I started to be like, maybe I shouldn't like secular music. And it was easy to be like, okay, and you'll agree with this, it's easy to be like, oh, Blink-182 is too dirty, I shouldn't have Blink-182, and I get rid of those CDs. But like, and when I was on Magnified Pod, I actually said I didn't do this. And I actually kind of unlocked these memories. I did do this. I did get rid of like secular CDs.
Do you hear that? He lied to you, Andrew.
I lied to you, Andrew, on your podcast. But the thing is, like, I kind of forgot because I didn't go full tilt. Like, I didn't, because no one was forcing me to do it. I was just doing it because I was going to these churches and, like, they talk about it. I'd be like, yeah, I shouldn't have, I don't remember what CDs I got rid of, but I was like, I kept other ones. You know what I mean? Really, it was an excuse to get rid of, like, the grunge CDs I wasn't interested in anymore. But I'm like, no, I'm going to keep Weezer. I'm going to keep Green Day because those bands are cool. You know what I mean? So then things get stricter. And then also, eventually, by the time, like, I'm in high school, my dad is going to other types of churches as well. Like, I've brought my parents along to those type of churches, and maybe my dad's making friends with other people from other denominations, and that's where my parents were always Republican, but that was never a huge thing in our family, like maybe during the main elections, but it's not like we talked about it all the time.
Although your dad has always been super political because he ran for local,
yeah. But I don't know, maybe it's something about being a kid. Maybe things were less political then, but they were political back then. But I don't know. There wasn't the same kind of 24-hour news, so I wasn't aware of that kind of politics. But the point is, that's when my parents, particularly my dad, become really conservative Christian, like actually like sort of like that's when there's like Christian businesses and like, Christian friends and really becoming more evangelical Christian, which is not, we were not raised in the evangelical world, but I sort of accidentally, I mean, my dad probably went there on his own. I don't know. I gotta ask my dad. I can just ask him. Anyway, I've been talking for a while.
Well, I grew up in Presbyterian and Methodist churches, and very, like, everybody's cool, we love everyone churches.
Right.
My parents were definitely not strict in that way. My mom was very strict with what I watched and took it and stuff, but I think that's more because, like, okay, so I was not allowed to watch the Ninja Turtles because she saw a story on Oprah
Right.
about a girl, like, stabbing her sister because they were playing Ninja Turtles, and that's why I wasn't allowed to watch it.
Right.
It was, there was nothing, like, you can't do this because we're Christian. Like, that was never a
Right.
thing. And it was, yes, my parents were, like, members of the church, and my mom would volunteer in the church, but it was like I went to Sunday school. Well, they went to church on Sundays, and then that was it, and we would go every week or whatever. And it wasn't until, I think I mentioned this really early on in the podcast, but, like, didn't listen to Christian music. My dad's a big jazz guy. He listened to a lot of jazz, specifically smooth jazz, when I was young. And my mom listened to oldies. And then when we moved to Florida, there was a very popular Christian station, but no oldie station. And so my mom just kind of started listening to it just because she enjoyed the music. It wasn't like a whatever kind of a thing. And it wasn't like we can only listen to this kind of music now. Like, she would usually listen to just whatever CDs I had in the car.
Right.
But, like, if she was in the car alone, like, she would put that on. Or if I didn't feel like listening to whatever I had, she would put Z88.3 on.
When I moved to Florida, where I met you, Z88, which is the big Christian channel down there,
Yeah.
they don't advertise themselves as a Christian channel at all.
It's safe for the little
It's
ears.
safe for the little. They just advertise themselves as a family channel.
Yeah.
It's Christian contemporary music, but they absolutely don't advertise themselves like that. I don't even, sometimes if I tune into that channel, like, I don't remember their, like, messages and their bumpers even being very Christian. There's a Christian channel here in Los Angeles now, and I actually use them as my FM Bluetooth transmitter station because they're just weak enough to overpower their station.
Yeah. And you're also just a little bit bitter because they took over one of the good 80s stations here. So, or at least that's why I'm like, yeah, cool, go for it, Dan, because.
But the thing is, they're super Christian. For the minute or two where I turn on the station, they're always like, their bumpers are like, giving scripture and giving prayer request. I don't know, maybe not prayer requests, but they're really like, the LA station here now is really Christian. Whereas I don't remember Z88 being super Christian. Maybe it is. Maybe people down in Florida, if they listen to us, are like, what are you talking about? But that's just how I remember it. For the couple years I lived there, and I would tune to that station.
Yeah. And then by middle school, which was the time when we moved between elementary and middle school,
Right.
our new church that we went to, that's when I finally started. I was old enough to and had gone through babysitting courses. So I had, like, CPR and first aid training and everything. So I volunteered some Sundays in the church nursery. And then the rest of the time I went to Sunday school. And then when you get to high school, at least in the church that I went to, which was a different church by then, they didn't have a Sunday school option. So I was basically volunteering in the church nursery almost every Sunday. And it's funny because I grew up on those praise and worship songs, like they cover on the Insiders, which is like, and Sonic Flood, which
Right.
the only Sonic Flood album that I have is, and I got it way
first
later.
one.
Yeah. So, like, Lord, I lift your name on high, and open the eyes of my heart, Lord. And
Right.
all those songs I loved. And then when I came back in, like, high school and later into, like, because, with Sunday school, a lot of times you go in for the singing part and then you leave for Sunday school after the singing part.
Right.
It was like everything had changed for the parts that I liked.
Right.
Like, I loved the singing part the most, but now they're singing all these songs that I don't know because I knew those, like, late 90s, early 2000s.
And the thing is, when we were kids, and those are the hymns that, well, when I was a younger kid, and we were going to what was called a Baptist church, but was not like a Baptist church. It was more like Methodist or Presbyterian, really. in Boston, we were singing hymns, and those hymns are old, right? Mm-hmm. But then by the time praise and worship stuff is happening, when I'm going to an evangelical church and when you're going to the churches you're going to, and they're playing Open the Eyes of My Heart and Our God is an Awesome God, you think those songs have been around forever.
Yeah.
But they really were like written in like the 80s. Like those were basically like new songs. Like they were pop songs, right? It's almost like you forget that reggae music, because you think reggae music's been around for like generations. Reggae music's only been around since the 70s. I like to say this: Spider-Man is older than reggae music. I like to tell that to people, and it blows their minds, because everyone thinks reggae music's been around for like 100 years.
Right.
It's like, no, it was invented in the 70s when it became. It's not like they revitalized it and then it became popular. It became popular as it was created. So my point is, those praise and worship songs we grew up on, they were like new songs at the time. So now the new songs that when we go to a church nowadays and we don't know what they're singing, that's what the new songs are.
Yeah.
It's like SNL casts. You're like, who are these people?
And I was a little like you. So when I got to high school, although I didn't have the outside influences, when I got to high school just on my own, I always had this like blind faith, unwavering faith. Mm-hmm. And when I got to high school, I just really started to embrace it. Not to an extremist point.
Right.
Because I've never been an extremist in anything. And I definitely turn away from extremism, and which is sort of a problem that I have with certain Christian culture, is because I just don't like extremism in any shape or form. But I was like very much like really into liking like God and stuff.
Right.
But at the same time, like the movie Saved came out when I was in high school. I loved the movie Saved. I thought that was such a great movie because I was like, it shows the extremism, but it shows the opposite of that. Like the Jenna Malone character is just, is an individual who sort of does then start to suffer from a crisis of faith through circumstance, but continues on with her faith regardless and has to deal with like the outside influences of like, are you a sinner? Are you like a bad person now or whatever? And it's like, no, she's just a person. So I thought that movie actually showed that Christians could come around.
Right.
Like, and that they could be, like whatever. And that everybody, lives
Ebbs
their
and
lives.
flows
Yeah,
and-
exactly.
Yeah. No, I understand. I just was thinking of, we were talking about extremes and how you weren't used to that, right?
Yeah.
I just remembered our story about the Supertones. Right?
Oh, man.
Because so I introduced Jessica. Jessica never knew, but Jessica knew about the Insiders, right? And you knew a little bit about Five Iron Frenzy, but the Supertones totally passed you by in their heyday. And I was like, oh, you should check out this. If you like the Insiders, you should check out the Supertones. It's like their lyrics are very Christian, but they're usually very positive. They're not really too accusatory, and you like them, and she did like them. And then the Supertones had their reunion in like 2010 or something like that. And I'm like, oh, we should go see the Supertones. And they actually played at a couple festivals over the next few years of their reunion. And we went to see them. And they would pause after a couple songs and give a short message. And Jessica was like, yeah, we're at a Christian festival. It makes sense. So you give a quick little
not
message.
something at all that I was used to.
Yeah.
I was the only band, a Christian band I had ever seen before, and the only Christian band that I was really super into was Relient K.
Right.
I knew who Five Iron Frenzy was only because the assistant youth pastor at my youth group had always wore a Five Iron Frenzy shirt, different Five Iron Frenzy shirts, and I think he had like a Five Iron Frenzy bag or something. So I was familiar with the name because of it, though I'd never heard any of their music. And the Insiders I actually found because we were like at the Christian bookstore in the mall or whatever, and my mom was like shopping around for, I don't know, wow worship, whatever. And I saw it and I love the artwork.
Right.
And then I flipped the CD over and I went, I know these songs.
You were like, and the cover's on the back and the back is on the front. This CD's amazing.
And I was like, I love all these songs, and this looks like it's a rockin' version of the songs I know. Let's get this. And my mom was like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's in the Christian bookstore or whatever. It's probably fine.
That's so funny because stepping back for a second, we'll finish the Supertone story in a moment. Part of the middle of my story is that before I start going to the evangelical church school, right, my mom is like, Danny, you listen to Green Day, you listen to Nirvana, you listen to these bands because MTV got unblocked in our house and we forgot to block it and we were too lazy to reblock it, right? So you started listening to grunge and the radio stations that play grunge in Boston. It's like, look, we're not going to force you not to listen to that. They took away my Nine Inch Nails CD. They're like, that's too much. They took away my Adam Sandler CD. They're like, that's way too much. That's worse than
But
Nine Inch
Lunch
Nails.
Lady
Actually.
Land.
Yeah, that's the G-rated track on there. That's like Wendy Clear on Enema of the State. Like, that's the clean song. But so she's like, you can keep your Green Day, you can keep your Weezer. Could you just like, I'm taking you to the Christian bookstore. They got bands that sound exactly like that. Could you just like get a couple of these just to like balance it out? And I did, and that's actually where I learned about. It wasn't just at the church, but that's where I learned about MXPX, and that's where I learned about 90 Pound Wuss and Tooth and Nail. And it was that same Christian bookstore where just walking in one day, they had the first Relient K CD on the shelf for the first time, and I'm like, oh, this looks like my sort of band. But yeah, I just wanted to. So it's the opposite of your mom, where your mom's going to the Christian bookstore and you're like, I want this CD.
Yeah.
And she's like, whatever,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
music, I don't care. My mom's like taking me to the Christian bookstore. It's like, please buy something you'll like more than Nirvana. In a way, I did. MXPX. But Supertone's story. So I take Jessica over the next couple years just to festivals, where if you've ever been to a Supertones concert, a festival set for them is just. It's just a bunch of songs and a quick little then a worship song, a quick message, back to a couple more songs. That's it. Jessica's like, okay, a little weird, but whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense. There's like preaching going on intense at this festival as well. Kind of makes sense. Then,
I had never been to a Christian music festival before I met Danny, and that was a little tiny bit of a culture shock.
Anyway, Jessica and I moved to Los Angeles. The Supertones announced their second final show in Orange County a couple years ago. It was like 2016 or 15 or something. So like, oh, we got to go to this. They're playing with PAX 217. We go. I forget, this is Jessica's first and last full Supertone show. I had seen a dozen full Supertone shows in my life, like headlining Supertone shows. And those are half a set of Supertone songs, half a set of praise and worship, 10, 15, 20 minutes of preaching, and then another half set of Supertone songs. And for me, it's like literally going to a rock show, church, and a rock show. That's what a full Supertone set is like. And I was always like, I was never really super interested in the preaching, but I was like, at that point, I'd been going to an evangelical church in school, and I'm like, I'm kind of used to this. I can kind of like listen, maybe zone out, maybe get what I can from the message, like understand, like if I agree or don't agree with what he's preaching. For Jessica, who had never been to a full Supertone show, when the preaching started, she's like, what is happening? She had no idea that a concert would just break and that full church would just suddenly start.
And it was so heavy-handed.
I was
so heavy-handed.
I traveled right back to 2002. It was a nice little jump back in time for me. For Jessica, it's like, what is happening?
Listen, I went to like churches where it was more the Joel Osteen style of preaching, where it's like, hey, here's a lot of positivity and how to bring positivity into your life.
Sort of some fluff, basically.
Fluff, exactly. Yeah, I went to
to
Fluff Churches, and I am great with that, and that's what I was used to, and that was what really connected with me, and just how to be
not really challenging people, but like that's what some Christians want.
We don't talk about revelations. We don't talk about anything.
We don't
too
talk about
crazy.
what pockets of society are sinning simply for being themselves.
Yeah, so definitely had only had experiences with the light fluff, and suddenly I'm getting real heavy-handed preached to in the middle of a ska show, and I'm like, whoa, man, what is this? I'm so not into this.
There's a lot of different types of Christianity out there. I think that's what the main takeaway has to be from this, and we don't know what our listeners are. So all we can do is talk about ourselves here.
So I'm sorry to offend, like, Supertone superfans out there. Listen, if that's for you, that's great. If that kind of worship and preaching connects to you, awesome. Like, I think that everybody should, connect to whatever connects to them, whatever makes them feel good. It was just a little over the top.
It's all
for
just
me.
thought and form. That's the way I think of it. Like, life is just thought and form. You just find what speaks to your brain, what speaks to your spirit. And it doesn't, if it's religion, if it's art, if it's television, if it's just sitting around and doing nothing, that's just what you do. Anyway, so just getting back to the song, my question is, do you believe in God? We explain all of that to sort of give you a background on us, because we've not really talked about that. We've hinted at it in past episodes, but that's sort of where we're coming from as Christians. And now that's our past. So getting to our present and also tying it back into this song. So Jess, do you believe in God? Today, like now, as Matt Thiessen is saying at this point in the song, he's saying, I believe in God now in 2016 when the album is out. Today in 2019, do you believe in God?
I believe in night. I believe in day. I believe there's a light coming back around again.
That is plagiarism. That is stone cold plagiarism. I have the genius.com page right up here on my computer, and I know you stole that.
Listen, Danny, I believe I might have some catching up to do.
So yeah, I think this song is, like I was sort of hinting at before, it's like if you've stepped away from God, right? If you've stepped away from your belief in Christ necessarily, and you're like, do I still believe in any of this? Like, what do I believe now? You would kind of say, I believe in God. Like, I'm coming back. And like,
Yeah.
I think this is Matt Thiessen, because so many songs in their past catalog were specifically about Christ and specifically about what Christ is saying we should or shouldn't live, or whatever those thoughts and that specific brand of Christianity that they were coming from at the time, right? This is like the most stripped down, like bare bones. This is like a back to basics thing, right?
Yeah.
This is like, but even further back to basics than the first album, which, has like Marilyn Manson and Softer
Yeah.
to Me that might have, or slightly judgmental lyrics. Like, he's saying, I just believe in God.
Maybe that's why I connect so much to this song, because it's so just kind of open, and I don't want to use the word generic, but it's like you could almost say, I believe in the universe. Like,
Right.
I believe it's just,
And so
I
many-
believe
and
in
that's
God,
what a lot of
you know?
people. That's what a lot of. I actually like. I like that universe talk stuff.
Yeah.
Because where I am nowadays, right, and I do still believe in God,
Same.
and I do still believe in Christ.
Yep.
But when I have a friend who becomes atheist, or I have a friend who says that they believe in God,
You fail to excommunicate?
yes, like I don't argue with anyone on it. I'm like, I've actually gotten to sort of like, agnostic is not the right word, because agnostic means a whole nother thing, but I've just come to this like impasse where it's like, I just believe everyone should believe, like whatever they want to believe.
Right.
There was a time, particularly when I was going to that church, those churches and schools, where I was kind of like entrenched in the culture, and it's like, yeah, everyone should believe in Christ and like all this stuff. Like, I definitely bought into that, even though that wasn't how I was originally raised in my first Christian churches. Not to like just constantly, you would you would be an example of Christ, just being a good person, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't go out there and
Absolutely.
tell everyone they're sinning. And for me, part of where I started to stray from like mainstream Christian thought and mainstream American Christian thought really was homosexuality. Like, I was like, it's so broken the way they treat like 50%, like 50%. So many people in the world. I don't actually know the percentage of how many people in the world are gay. Actually, now that I think about it, but it's like it's just my brain started to break as it's breaking now. And even as I'm a kid, I'm still just a kid, I'm like 15, 14, I started to realize then that the way that the churches I was in handled this issue of homosexuality was like broken within its own logic. Because the main crack in the veneer for me was like, okay, if you're a Christian, you believe homosexuality is a sin, right? Let's just say, we just got to acknowledge that for the sake of argument, that's what is sort of in the Christian thought, right?
Right.
That's not what I think, but that's what's in the Christian thought. So to them, simply being homosexual is a sin like any other sin. And Christ has saved you from your sin. So no matter what sin you are, if you're a murderer, if you're a thief, if you're whatever, like actual sins, actual bad things, and you come to the Lord, you are saved. But somehow, and sometimes some of them wouldn't say it, some Christians in some churches I went to wouldn't say it, but some would flat out say it, that somehow if you're homosexual, you can't be Christian, right? Because they think homosexuality is a sin, and therefore, if you're openly homosexual, you're sinning, so you can't be saved. Like somehow the act of loving who you love invalidates your salvation, that somehow the act of loving who you love circumvents Christ's power to save you, right? Like that thought in and of itself to me was broken.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make sense. Like somehow that, if you, for the sake of argument, just step inside the Christian way of thinking and like realize they think homosexuality is a sin, why is that the only sin that God won't save you while you're sinning? Like there's so many like Christian discussions where it's like a man has like murdered hundreds of people and he's laying on his deathbed and he realizes what a horrible person he's been and he prays, and does God save him? And like, of course he does. It's like, okay, a person's been living with someone of the same gender for their whole life and they've been faithful to them and they've adopted children or they've had, artificially inseminated children or whatever, and they've lived a happy, healthy, fulfilling life, and they pray to the Lord to save their soul at the end. Are they saved? Like, no, because they're gay. Like, that broke my brain. I'm like, I can't agree with this. I could still believe in Christ, but that's not the Christ I believe in. I believe Christ has the power to actually save everyone and doesn't care what anyone's doing as long as they're not hurting other people. That's the only thing I believe is actually a sin, is when you're hurting other people, when you don't have consent. And sorry, last thing on no. You look like you want to say something. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that it's funny that was what broke you.
Yeah.
Because I have a different story about what broke me. But because my parents actually had gay friends. So that was not ever a thing. And none of the churches that we ever went to, and maybe because I was in Sunday school, I didn't really hear about this. But as far as I know, none of the churches we ever went to ever preached against homosexuality per se.
Right. A lot of my early ones didn't. It was some of the later ones in high school where they started to do that openly.
Okay,
By the late 90s and the early 2000s, I'm like, ooh.
So I never had that coming from that. I mean, you would have kids in school like teasing about things like that, and that was more where the like hatred for that came from, was just from peers. It was never from a Christian standpoint that I would ever hear any of that. And I actually work in the LGBT community a lot. I'm work in film and entertainment, and I personally have a lot of LGBT friends.
We have a majority of LGBT.
Yes, because I enjoy helping to tell their stories, because personally, I think that everyone deserves to see a positive version of themselves in the media. Because, Danny, you can watch a movie and you can see yourself in 98% of characters out there, because most characters are straight white dudes.
An incel like me. I'm looking forward to that Joker movie.
And though I'm
kidding. I just want to make sure I say I'm kidding.
Though I have less people that I can see myself in, just solely being a woman, I still have found characters, that I can connect with, that I can easily connect with. But, I have a lot of friends who maybe couldn't find characters that they really connected with growing up. And that's not fair to them. So I think that everyone should be able to find someone in entertainment that they connect with, because I just think that's a really positive, beautiful thing for people. The thing that broke me, oddly, is, and still on the subject of entertainment, so I was really entrenched in like my youth group and stuff in high school, and I would go, and every week I would like pick up my best friend and we would go to youth group every I don't remember what it was, like Tuesday or Wednesday night, and we would have fun, and every now and then it would be a weird topic, but we didn't really see it as that weird because we were just, kids. There was once where, and in hindsight, this is incredibly inappropriate, but at the time it seemed like whatever, we're like, you had to raise your hand if you were still a virgin. So
That's
of course,
so uncool.
It's so uncool.
That's so
My friend and I,
bad.
of course, our hands shot up. But of course, being like teenagers and just generally shitty and judgy, it was like we saw other kids that we knew that we were like, they are not at All Virgins and they put their hands up.
Right.
And we were sitting there going like, we know that Tiffany is not a virgin. Like, she is lying. And I don't even remember what it was.
Oh my God, look at her butt.
This same youth pastor
Yeah.
sent out an email. Every week he would send out a newsletter. And he sent out a newsletter and he would review movies.
Mm-hmm.
And one week I was reading this and Sin City had just come out.
Uh-huh.
And Sin City to young...
Sin City 1.
Sin City 1 to young...
T.O. to young.
Wannabe filmmaker Jessica.
Right.
Looked at this movie and was like, I've never seen a movie like this before. The visuals are incredible. It's a different way of storytelling than I've ever seen. And the movie blew my mind. And I thought it was so cool. And our youth pastor, he sends out an email completely condemning the movie. He's like, there's prostitutes in it, there's this, there's that, there's like violence, there's
prostitutes in the Bible.
Exactly. He's basically...
There's violence in the Bible.
He's not only condemning art that I saw as art and appreciated for what it was as art, but he almost made it sound in this email like if you liked the movie, you weren't a Christian.
Right.
That was what made me just take a step back. And it was like a month or two. It came out a month or two before I graduated high school. And I stopped going to youth group after that. And I remember seeing him like around the church just on a Sunday. And he was like, hey, Jess, I haven't seen you in youth group recently and whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm just really busy with stuff. But like the truth was that was the first time I'd felt this weird, like overbearing Christian viewpoint that just didn't connect with me, and I felt attacked.
Getting people to conform.
Yes, I felt, and I just felt attacked for someone who just appreciated the art of it, and I just felt like that was so wrong that to just take such an overt like standpoint. And he was more than welcome to his thoughts.
He was treating you like a Justin. He's like, next thing you watch this movie, next thing you know, you're gonna be drinking Miller Lite.
Exactly.
But I don't want to focus on the negatively perceived Relient K Christian songs. I wanted to focus on this one because, so I do still believe in God. I don't believe in Christians at all, right?
No.
Like, no, I do believe in. The thing is, it's just so scattered, and there's no such thing to me as Christians because there's too many. There's too many ways of thinking about. There's too many denominations. There's too many sects. There's too many there's this one particular version of Christianity that is in the mainstream, that is in the news, that is controlling this country, that is just not Christianity to me.
Yeah.
It is not Christ-like in any way. So it's like
it can be really hard to find a place in a church right now.
Right. So to me, Christ is just love. And that's what I believe in. I believe in love, and I believe that everyone deserves forgiveness and kindness and salvation and love.
I'm just giving Danny major hard eyes right now.
And I don't think the way you live your life, as long as you aren't purposefully hurting people, I don't think the way you live your life has anything to do with the salvation that you're owed. Am I saying this correctly? Does that sort of make sense? Maybe I said it backwards by mistake. But it's like if you're not purposefully hurting people, right? You're living your life, whether you're doing good or you're passive. Like even if you're lukewarm, you're still deserving of Christ's love.
I have always believed...
I mean, you're still deserving of Christ's love even if you're evil, but that's a whole nother conversation that I don't really want to have right now.
I have always believed and always been taught, and this was reinforced absolutely by my parents, that just if you are a good person and you live a good life, then you get into heaven. Basically, because we had, like I said, my parents have had a lot of different kind of friends, and we had Jewish friends, a lot of Jewish friends. And some Christians might say, well, they're Jewish, they're not going to heaven.
The thing is, even when I wasn't going to an evangelical church, that is the version of Christianity I was always, even when I was going to the one that didn't judge the outside world for like entertainment and way of living and didn't talk about homosexuality and didn't like actively judge that was still the root of the Christianity I was raised in, is that you have to believe, you have to ask Christ into your heart or you're not going to heaven. I also don't believe that anymore.
That's just a way I've never felt. We had a very, very close family friend who I called Bub because she was Jewish and it was short for Bubby.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like a third grandmother to me. She was there when I was born.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just was always a very close family friend. And she and I had a very close relationship. And I know that she's looking down on me.
Right.
You know, just like my other grandmothers who I was very, very close to, you know, I can feel her there sometimes.
Yeah. For me, from what you're saying, and the reason I don't believe what I was raised to believe in that particular way about like how you get into heaven is because the numbers just aren't on Christianity's side. because so many, if that was true, if you can only believe in Christ and ask him into your heart and that's the only way into heaven, then the army of hell is humongous. Right? Like the army of heaven is much, much, much smaller, especially if you're even Christians who don't believe Catholics are going to heaven, because Catholics don't ask Christ into their heart. They go through Mary. So so a lot of Protestant Christians look at Catholicism as like basically this other thing that calls itself Christian. So they don't believe they're going to heaven. So it's like...
And there's Jehovah's Witnesses, or who is it that believes that only like a specific number?
I think that's Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah. But like, why would you join a religion that's like, you know what, the odds actually are not in your favor? Like, who's joining that?
I don't think they also believe in hell. So it's like, it's not like everyone else is going to hell if you're a Jehovah's Witness. Which, by the way, I tweeted this. I was like, wait a second. Justin from What Have You Been Doing Lately parties Thursdays through Wednesdays, but not for birthdays. And Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate birthdays. So maybe that's what happened to the salvation he claimed, is he converted to Jehovah's Witness. And he's like, I'm Jehovah's Witness and I love Miller Lite. So, getting back specifically to the song.
Yes.
I believe in light. I believe in night. I believe in day. I believe there's a light coming back around again. A lot of this song, while not specifically referencing Christ, except for "Let Your Kingdom Come," which is, that's about. I would think that's about Christ coming back and His kingdom reigning and everything.
Or it's just a nice figure of speech,
I guess. There's so much references to nature in this song, and that's what we know Matt Thiessen really loves, and that's what actually Relient K and Matt Hoops really love. Like, that's the cover.
Maybe that's why I connect so much to
Yeah.
Relient K, is because I just love being out in nature. I always love Easter sunrise services, because we would spend, even before we lived in Florida, we would spend Easter Sundays in Fort Lauderdale with my grandmother, and they would have sunrise service on the beach, and I just loved being out in nature. Like, why can't we find a church that's like super open-minded and outside
and welcomes dogs, so we don't have to leave April at home?
Oh, that would be amazing. I love it. Where is this church?
So there's so much reference to nature here. The rumbling of thunder, a rolling drum, the big line of the album, I believe the sky was made for me to touch. I believe the sky was made for me to touch, right? Like, that's the peace is sweeping over me. I believe in fear when I feel courageous. I believe the sky is going on for ages. I skipped a line there. But there's so much reference. Like, this whole album, and also this portion of Relient K's career, is all about nature and connecting with the beauty of the world. Because that's the one thing, if you believe in God on any level, no matter what religion you are, no matter what you believe God is, if you believe it's actually a thinking entity, or you believe it's just a sense of something that exists in the world, if you think it's something intangible, if you think it's some form of like science basically that we haven't unlocked, some like, other realm that we can't comprehend, if that's what God is to you, what we know exists is this world, is this planet. So that's like, so I think that's what Matt Thiessen is saying here with all of this natural imagery. He's saying, this is Earth. Mm-hmm. I believe in God. The only thing I know for absolute certain, because there are all these Christian rules with all these different Christianities and all these ways of thinking I was raised to believe, and all these other things and all these experiences Matt Thiessen has had that we know of or we don't know of. Like, there's so much in his life we will never know. There's stuff he's shared through song and interview, and so much more we will never know about him. He's like the one, to me, I think he's saying, the one thing I know for absolute certain, because I believe in God, The only thing I know God has absolutely done is given us this planet, right? Mm-hmm. Like when it comes to everything else about how are you supposed to live your life and what are you supposed to do and what's right and what's wrong and what's sin and what's not and is there sin, none of that matters. The only thing I know for absolute certain is here is Earth and God has made it, or God is here giving us this planet.
And maybe for him, as I know it is for me, there's something about being outside in just the absolute beauty of nature that you say someone created this.
Right.
That you feel that connection to the higher power that created the beauty that you're standing in.
Mm-hmm. One line here that's amazing is, I believe in fear when I feel courageous. Like that's a kind of a challenge. That's probably the most challenging line in the song.
Yeah.
It's like, what does that mean? I mean, I kind of get what it means.
It's
but
so profound.
It is kind of profound. It's like when you feel courageous, you know that the fear exists. Does he mean? I guess it's like you feel courageous, but you know fear exists. It's not like you feel courageous and suddenly there's no such thing as fear. Maybe that's what that means. Because it's like
he's like, listen, I'm usually a Hufflepuff, but right now I'm feeling like a Gryffindor.
But
listen, if you're a Christian that like banned Harry Potter, I don't have time for
it's
that.
all made up mumbo jumbo.
Yeah,
It's like there was a recent school that banned it because it's like if you read the things in here that'll unleash actual demons or whatever. It's like it's all mumbly jumbly words. It's all just, it's like Star Wars. I mean, I'm sure somewhere there's a Christian church that thinks Star Wars is evil, but it's like, still, it's like Star Wars, it's like the Force and everything. It's just made up. It's fiction. It's like there is actual fiction out there that uses what are, real world incantations and real world magic and all that stuff. Like, but Harry Potter is not one of them. It's all just made up words. But I believe in fear when I feel courageous. Maybe that's sort of like, going through life, going in and out of believing or not being sure what you believe, if you are raised Christian or whatever religion you might be. It's like there's dark times and there's light times. So it's like they always say, like, you can't have good without evil and you can't have evil without good and you can't have light without dark. Like those are consummate philosophical things to think. So it's like you can't have fear if you don't have courage. Can't have courage if you don't have fear, right? You can't have a dark time in your life. You can't come back around again unless you missed something for a while. Yeah, it's a very beautiful song. It is very very modern worship sound.
To be honest, I have never once, and I think that this kind of feels extremist on the extremist scale for me, so maybe this is why. And I'm not trying to pass judgment. I'm not here to do that, but
Harry Potter.
I've never been one of those people who ever felt the need to raise their hands while singing. And what is that? Testify or whatever. I've never
worship. It's just worship.
I've never felt that come through me.
There's so many types of worship, and that was a brand new experience for me because when we worshiped in the churches I grew up in, you came together and you talked and you shared thoughts about how has your week been and I've been having trouble. Well, here's the scripture. Like that's what worship was. It was like being together. But then I go to another church and like people have their hands up, and that's also now a very ubiquitous common conception of what Christians are. But that is not what all Christians are. Right. So I kind of like fell into that for a while, but I never actually felt it. It wasn't a way that I really connected to God.
That was a thing that I always felt was kind of hokey. It felt, I guess because I had never felt it, it felt fake to me. I never felt the need to put my hands up.
It just felt
as I sang.
And I just want to say, and I don't mean to speak for you, but if people out there, and I know people really do feel that kind of worship connects them to God, we're not saying that that's wrong. We're just saying that doesn't work for everyone, and it didn't work for me. I tried to make it work. It didn't. It was actually like I tried to make that kind of worship work for myself. Sorry, hold on to your thought. I tried to make that kind of worship work for myself at the churches I was going to. It never really worked. It kind of worked at times. Like I never really got it. And eventually when I stopped doing it, But one time at a church, the pastor actually came up and started trying to teach me how to speak in tongues. And I was like, nope. And if you speak in tongues and it connects you to something, the thing is, like, Honestly, like,
Nope,
I'm
I'm
not
tapping
yucking
out.
anybody's yum. I'm not yucking anybody's yum. Just like, I just won't. If you really believe that connects you to something, it's like anything else. Like, if you think yoga helps you, if you think running helps you, if you think cheeseburgers help you, if it's what helps you, it's what helps you. Hopefully it's not something that's destroying your body. Like, hopefully you're not using illegal drugs. There is a line to what I'm saying here. But if you think speaking in tongues connects you to something in your brain, to the Lord, to the thing that's outside you, then sure. But I had no interest in it. It wasn't going to connect for me. I didn't want to do it. And I felt super pressured and awkward. And that was like I haven't had a lot of negative experiences in the Christian church. I'm very, very lucky. A lot of people have had incredibly negative experiences at the hands of Christians, at the hands of the Christian church. I have not really had that, but that was one. Sorry, were you going to say something or did you forget?
I was just going to say that this song is the first time I ever actually felt like raising my hands up while singing.
Oh my God, that's wonderful.
Never once before. Always thought it was real hokey.
Were you
This is
reaching-
weirdly the first time when I was like, I feel like just letting the spirit in or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Just like praising, just being like, I feel your love raining down on me. Like, first time ever was with this song.
Did you have your arms wide open? Did you reach out for the sky because it was meant for you to touch?
Exactly. Maybe it's
yeah.
just because I'm getting older and like momish. I don't know. Maybe you just reach a
Beautiful.
certain point as a woman and you're just like, yeah, I love it all. It's all good.
Well, did you have anything else you wanted to say about the song or about what's wrong with the church today? Hey, we can talk about what's wrong with the Christian church when we do Down in Flames as well.
Oh,
And
goodness.
Christians devouring each other.
Well, no. Well, yes and no. So I did my normal Relient K God deep dive, but you can imagine the pages and everything that came up when you just put in Relient K God.
Yeah. I had to be very thorough on YouTube because so much stuff came up and I really didn't find any covers.
Yeah.
But I went through everything and it was all just Relient K.
What was really funny, though, was that top of page 3 was Danny's Reddit post asking for covers.
Yeah, right. I posted on Reddit, and I actually thought of that later. Like, I posted on our social media asking for covers, and I got 2 replies. But then I was, like, late in the game. I was like, oh, I should have posted on the Reddit and asked people, because also I want to be more active in the Reddit, and I don't know if... I'm nervous. Like, do the people on the Relient K Reddit want to know about us or not? I have no idea. Are they going to want to know about us after this episode? We'll find out. But the point is, I did go on the Reddit.
We might be losing followers.
It's what it is. This is our truth. So I did get one reply, and it was Rugged J Man. Let me know. That's his Reddit name. He said, "My friend and I are covering the entirety of Air for Free. Unfortunately, we won't be
Wow.
done by the time you put out this podcast, but we plan to release in December." And then, who I assume is his friend, Zach Pledger, said, "Could you rearrange your podcast schedule so that you could use this cover in December and do a different episode this week?" And I was like, we already announced God on last week's episode, and 2 other people have
Yeah.
sent covers, so we're locked into that. But hearing about the Air for Free cover album is awesome news, and we'd love to talk about it on this next week's episode.
We'll definitely hold off any more like deep cuts from Air for Free
Yeah.
until that comes out.
So then Rugged J Man replied, and he said, "My name is John. My friend's name is Cable. Our band is called JC Keith, and the Air for Free cover album is going to be called Air for Free Reimagined. We plan to release some singles in the coming months, but for now, here's a little demo clip of Elephant Parade." And I said, "That's awesome, and I'm going to play it on the episode." So before we get to our 2 God covers, here is JC Keith's quick little demo of Elephant Parade.
Cool.
Take the gist of it and twist it till it makes you smile. Don't be scared if there's a snare, sometimes it takes a while. There's much to learn from every turn inside a labyrinth. Don't you try to think about it, no way to talk about it. I will ever change and never cease to be amazed. It bubbles up and overflows and then it goes away. I want to hold and nurture every second of this life that has been given to me, even though limited me. Jackrabbit, snake pit, running, no, my been a long
fun. That
Very
instrumental is
jazzy.
legit. Yeah. And the singing's a little jazzy, a little loungy.
Yeah. It's great.
I like
Looking
it.
forward to that cover album.
Yeah.
And so we do have 2 covers from God for this song. But did you have anything else you want to say before we get to that?
I did. So in my deep dive, I found that Michael Weaver over on Jesus Freak Hideout had to say this about the song. God is one of the most impactful and powerful songs present. Not so much in a worshipful sense, but with the way the music connects with the message. Piano carries the verse and pre-chorus, while overdriven guitars enter in the chorus to give it a little extra punch. The song is certainly one of the most striking and will likely be a fan favorite.
I agree with that. Concur.
Then John Foreman of Switchfoot listed this as one of his favorite Relient K songs. There was an interview or something with him where before the Searching for America tour, that's what it was called, right?
Right.
Looking for America.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We've named it correctly in 2 past episodes.
Yeah.
We can have some slack this time.
So he named God as one of his favorite songs, along with Who'd Have Guessed It, Deathbed, as well as Who I Am Hates Who I've Been, Be My Escape, Air for Free, Forget and Not Slow Down, and High of 75.
Ooh.
Which I accidentally typed as High of 76 at first, but I knew what I meant.
The High of 76 is when America was founded.
86, sorry.
Oh.
High of 86. That's more like, for me, I love the warm weather.
Next 4th of July, I've got to post a thing about High of 76, and it's like going to show all the founding fathers and like an original American flag.
That's good, because that ties into to Plead the Fifth.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. So this same article with the John Foreman thing, I was scrolling through it all the way down to the bottom, and so I did my research for this last night at 3 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. And on this page towards the bottom, like right at the end of the article, there was this horrifying picture of Billie Eilish. I'm not sure how to say her name.
Oh, yeah. I've actually never heard that said out loud. I've only seen it on Twitter.
Yeah.
And on Spotify.
So there was a picture of her, like, with her eyes whited out, looking like like something from The Exorcist, and at 3 a.m., just like it scared the living daylights out of me.
I did not agree for a creepypasta.
I did not. I'm like, listen, I'm looking up Relient K stuff. I'm looking up Christian, like, whatever music. I don't need this scary, like, Exorcist picture looking at me. I was like, thanks, there's no way I'm falling back to sleep now. Another sort of interesting, I guess, message board I found where a user asked how is Relient K Christian? Their songs seem no more overtly Christian than mainstream music.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I can kind of, in a way, understand if they're not really paying attention to deep cuts and stuff. I wrote a letter to the Punk News podcast one time talking about MXPX, and this is actually before I became MXPX Memes, so I didn't know the catalog, like, inside and out yet.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, MXPX was only Christian on these albums, and by the time I was slowly going the way of the Buffalo, they were totally chill and not, like, super Christian anymore. And I'm like, oh no, there's, like, really Christian songs on the album after Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo, Ever Passing Moment. It's like, I never really paid attention to these songs until I started making memes about the band. So I was like, that letter was totally wrong, and they read it on the podcast. And I became MXPX Memes, and I don't want anyone to ever learn that was my letter. So
well, now they know.
Yeah.
I also, oh my gosh, so I found an article that we're already running pretty late, so I'm not going to dive into it today. But know that it's coming when we discuss mood rings. Oh. And once we get to those Patreon episodes that we have planned, and we cover the complex infrastructure known as the female mind.
Right, our Relient K Book Club.
Yes.
Episodes on the Patreon.
This article is titled, Relient K Using CCM to Sell Sexism.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy.
This is fun.
Oh no.
I'm so excited. All
right, straw man arguments.
So even though this isn't on today's subject matter, but I did come across this into the deep dive, and I found some pretty great unrelated gems. This one is one of them. This article is titled Relient K Punk Out. They scream and jump, they are tattooed and pierced, and they rebel against society's expectations. They are punks, but not because they party, drink, and collect groupies. Relient K are punks because they attend church, read C.S. Lewis, and sing about God. This Canton, Ohio band continues to buck the punk stereotype with its third album.
But Christian punk is a super stereotype.
2 lefts don't make a right, but 3 do. Like Christian bands, Super Chick and the Elms, Relient K. Oh, I love the Elms. Relient K. That's another Christian band I know. I didn't realize they were Christian, really. Relient K delivers energetic punk beats with positive lyrics. Divide Sum 41 by Blink-182 and add Eve 6, and you'll get the sound of Relient K.
No, you won't. That's a horrible recipe. That's like when you go to one of those recipe websites, they're like, here's how you make chocolate chip cookies or whatever, and it's this horrible mess because they didn't type it out correctly. It's a horrible recipe. That's like... I want to make a... Wait. I'm going to have to make a meme when this episode comes out where it's going to be the opening images of the Powerpuff Girls. Instead of Sugar Spice Everything Nights, it's going to be Sum 41, Eve 6, and Blink-182. And then it's going to be this horrible mash thing. What was... I don't remember. Bunny the Powerpuff Girl, which is the Powerpuff Girl that the Powerpuff Girls try to make themselves so that it'll work for them and they can relax, but it's like unstable.
Sadie Hawkins Pod, where you get all of your Powerpuff Girls deep cuts.
It's not a deep cut. That's a very popular episode.
To get an idea of their lyrics, subtract all profanity and references to drugs, sex, or alcohol from previously mentioned bands, and double. Now you have not listened to
What Have You Been Doing
What
Lately?
Have You Been Doing Lately? Or Collapsible Lung. And double the satiric wit and references to God and spiritual struggles. Previous albums, The Anatomy of Tongue-in-Cheek and Relient K, dropped names like Maybelline, Thundercats, Mr. Ed, and Marty McFly. And this album, they forgot Charles in Charge and Nancy Drew. This album continues their style of combining spiritual wisdom with pop culture. 2 Lefts maintains Relient K's sound and their means of communicating to woes and wows of college-age Christians.
This is one of the first reviews you've ever read where they complimented Relient K for sticking to their sound. And it's always like, Relient K has drastically changed their sound.
Well, I guess because this came out at the time of 2 Lefts, so they still sounded like Relient K, I guess. Lead singer Matt Thiessen sings on key, even about his too often failure in the sight of God, in paying bills on time, in pleasing parents, and in letting go of a girlfriend. As demonstrated by the band's name, which comes from band member Matthew Hoops' Old Plymouth Relient K, the band has a habit of labeling large issues with a simple, sarcastic title. Relationships become chapstick chaplips and things like chemistry. Dramatic girls are mood rings, and a pink tux represents the 1980s. With their songs showing up on MTV...
Are they just filling a word count right now?
Maybe. With their songs showing up on MTV, a Nintendo game, and in last year's VeggieTales movie, Relient K appears to be pressing on to mainstream stardom, much like Christian rock band...
Pun intended.
Much like Christian rock band and repeat Warped Tour band MXPX. Oh, Danny.
Oh, who's that?
And then that's where it ends, and then it's a run-on sentence of... MXPX period, and then no space. Album review title, 2 Lefts don't make a right, but 3 do. Label Goatee Records staff rating. Hello, there are you and 2.
It just got cut off in the middle?
It stops at MXPX. There's a period.
Oh, just like MXPX, the end.
The end.
But
then it's just a run-on sentence of extra words.
Yeah, they were filling a word count. My theory is proven.
There's no author attributed here that I can find. It's from a not secure website, according to my internet browser, called oudaily.com.
Oh, you daily.
Ow, daily?
Ow, daily. Well, that is fascinating. I like how you kind of trailed off at the end there, just like how,
Just like the
how
article.
the article did. So we are running long, but we have to get to these covers because we have two, and they were sent. They are Sadie Hawkins Pod exclusives. So first we have Sylph Band. The band is called Sylph, spelled Sylph. Sentimental Highs and Lows is what their Twitter bio says. I am not following them. I should follow them. Okay, there we go. And they're the ones that sent us two versions, but the first version didn't play, and I didn't check until way too late in the game. So by the time I emailed them, I didn't get an email back. So maybe we'll play it later.
Yeah, definitely.
And what we'll do is we'll play a little bit of this, and then we'll actually upload both of these songs into the podcast stream so everyone can hear the full versions because they're not out there anywhere else. I have to get Sylph's permission on this, but I do have the other person's permission on this. So Adam Goff is the main person, and on Twitter he's Adam D. Goff, 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 and he was the main person I've been talking to. He sent us their cover, and it's got a lot of instruments, and it goes like this.
I believe in night, I believe in day, and I believe there's a light coming back around again. I believe you're right, 'cause I believe there's a way. I believe I might have some catching up to do. Oh, 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 the voices are growing strong. Whoa, the rumbling of thunder rolling drum. Let your kingdom come. I believe in God. I believe in God. Whoa, I believe that I believe enough. So help me, God. I believe enough, and I believe in us. Whoa, I believe the sky was made for me to touch.
So that's Sylph Band. That's Sylph. I think the band's just called Sylph, but their Twitter handle is Sylph Band.
Nice.
Adam Goff's version. I realized that maybe the time signature, the time change there got a little tricky. I don't know time signatures that well, especially in worship music. If it's not 4/4 or 4/3 or whatever, I definitely don't know what it is.
I like that it felt a little folky.
It did feel a lot more folky. It
Yeah.
felt like a little bit campfire-y.
Yeah.
It felt a little...
I love a good campfire jam.
It's like an even more kind of rustic version.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, when there's sort of a
And it's a little
time
slower
shift.
at the beginning, and I like
Yeah.
that.
So I really like that. Thank you so much, Adam, for
Thank
that
you.
version. And like I said, I'll post this separately for people to hear the full thing if I get that permission. And then we have Christian Lewis, who I'm not sure if he contacted me on Twitter. So sorry, Christian, I have lost if you contacted me on the socials. I wanted to plug his socials, but he did email us, and he's Christian Lewis, and he sent us this, and he actually sent it as a video. And
We'll plug you next week. Hit us up with your
Yes.
socials.
But we'll also plug it when I upload the video separately in the feed.
Yeah.
I might just do the audio for the feed. But he sent it as a video, and here it is.
I believe in night, I believe in day, I believe there's a light coming back around again. I believe you're right, 'cause I believe there's a way, and I believe I might have some catching up to do. Oh, the voices are growing strong. Oh, rumbling of thunder, roaring let your kingdom come. I believe in God, I believe in God. Oh, I believe that I believe in love. Surround me, God, I believe in love, I believe in us. Oh, I believe the sky was made for me to touch.
So that is Christian Lewis's version, as Jessica struggles with her headphones.
That was really beautiful.
That was
really pretty and slowed down, and just that piano, that was really nice. Yeah.
But that was great. Yeah, that's really wonderful. So like I said, I'll put these up somewhere for people to hear the full versions, because these are not available online anywhere right now.
Yeah, that was very soulful. That like slowed down piano version. I really like that.
So that's about it for God. Did you have anything? Not God himself, but that's about it for the song God. The cover, I don't know, Jessica, we got the cover of Time magazine. It says God is dead. Oh no, what a horrible time for this to happen. No.
There's one more thing.
Yes.
Andrew.
No, I didn't forget about that.
Okay.
But that's it for the song God.
Fellow Weird Al head. What do you call a Weird Al head? A poodle hat? I don't know.
A poodle hat. Let's see if there's got to be a thing. Weird Al fans are called. I'm a slow typer. I'm actually a fast typer. Frequently asked questions. He gave himself the air name Weird Al because of his penchant for playing music that was, well, kind of weird. Fans of Weird Al, what do we call ourselves? Reddit post. Trek fans or Trekkies, etc. What are we called? Aliens?
Wait, what are Star Trek fans called?
Well, this person said Trekkies. Trekkies or Trekkers. There's a debate about Star Trek fans, whether they're called Trekkies or Trekkers.
Oh.
And I believe, at least when I was young, Trekkies were classic Star Trek fans and Trekkers were... What? Why are you making that face? What am I missing? What the fuck? What's happening?
With you.
You didn't want an actual answer. You're just screwing with me?
Yes.
What a way to end this episode. There's only one way I can cheer up now, listening to a hilarious song by Andrew.
You didn't answer what Weird Al heads are called.
Well, according to this Reddit post from 8 months ago, it doesn't look like there's a consensus. Some people are suggesting ideas. Close personal friends of Al. I think that's like the name of a fan club or something. So maybe this one person thinks that that's what they should be called. Alcoholics. Oh, whoa. I don't know if I like that. That's mocking people's misfortune and their pain.
I don't know. I have developed a taste for Miller Lite.
We're going to be referencing that song for a long time.
Forever.
Yeah.
We're just going to lose listeners based on that alone. They're like, guys, you've already driven it into the ground.
I had a Miller Lite for the first time this week because of that song. Maybe I've had a Miller Lite before and I didn't think of it, but I never paid attention. I'm like, hey, they got Miller Lite at this restaurant we're at tonight. We got to get this. And I did. And it was like, oh, this is like beer. I had a pumpkin beer tonight, Howling Gourds from Trader Joe's.
Ooh, how was that?
It was very spicy, just like you. So,
poor Andrew is just waiting for us to play the cover.
So here's Andrew's cover. So I think we'll actually go out on this because, I don't know, maybe we'll have comments. Let's see how we feel. Let's go. Let's hear a little of this. Oh, thank God it's only 1 minute and 17 seconds. She's put her drink back in her glass.
You're already making us ROLF-ing.
My comment.
I
don't think Andrew's cover is going to be as funny as what just happened.
This week the trend is to rip off brand new from beginning to end and mimic Jesse's cadence again and again and deflect all comparisons. This week the trend is to find another band, cause I can't spend all my free time generating pop-punk hits, so I need a little help with my songs this week. And so I say, I found the solution and I'm gonna run with it. What if they never knew it? What would they do with it? Cause I was absolutely sure I had it all figured out in 2000. And now it's this minute, this hour, this day, this month, this year, this decade, this life, this existence. What is this? Who are we? What am I? Who am I? What are we? I'm sorry, I've lost, I'm crying, I'm dying, we're dying. Love me.
That was amazing.
It was a bit spicy, a bit more critical of Relient K than we've been up to this point. Scathing commentary on Relient K, and possibly...
Andrew did say weeks and weeks ago that we are being entirely too kind, so...
Right. I like this weekend, this month, or whatever
that was my favorite part.
Yeah, that was great. He played that down. He was like, "Oh, this is gonna be so awful. You guys are gonna hate it." I loved it. It was really good.
It was awesome.
Again, far more spicy than we're used to being about Relient K at this point in our podcast. But thank you so much, Andrew.
Well, Danny, we've only done one song off Collapsible Lung.
That's true. Please, Andrew, start sending us your Collapsible Lung parodies.
Yes.
And I guess that's about it for now. So, get on our social media. Let us know if you believe in God.
Get on it.
Maybe I should put a Twitter poll and be like, do you believe in God? Yes or no? Yes, no, or it's complicated. And that would be on our Twitter, which is Sadie Hawkins Pod. That's the same for our Instagram. You can email us if you have any covers of your own for songs we haven't done yet or songs we have done. Go ahead and send them in. That's sadiehawkinspod@gmail.com. We can take attachments, because this is 2019 and that's what Gmail does. And if
you already have it on YouTube, link us the YouTube.
Yes. And don't forget that we have a voicemail, which is 402-95-SADIE. And if you want to play us a song or just sing us a vocal cover over the phone, go ahead and do that and we'll play it again and again and again. Just like, other songs. This is how every episode is going to end, where I just don't know what to say. So let's go get some paper towels because there's water everywhere now.
We just wasted 93 minutes of your life. Yeah!